The Commanders get it done. Win number 3 in a row in Indianapolis. David's there. And we're here to discuss it with you. How did they get it done? Next on the Locked On Commanders podcast.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Commanders fans, welcome aboard one and all, and welcome in to the Locked On Commanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every day. We, of course, are your daily podcast covering the Washington Commanders and free and available on all platforms, including YouTube and the WUSA 9 Plus app on your Roku or Amazon Fire Stick. We thank you for making us your first listen and or view of the day. I am Chris Russell. Good to have you with us. And my partner, David Harrison, is in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium. He covers the Washington Commanders for SI.com's Commander Country. You can listen to me and Pete Medhurst on the Team 980 throughout the Washington, D.C. area, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to noon Eastern time, or anytime live, free, and or on demand on the Audacy app, which is also how you can listen to the Locked On Commanders podcast. Again, always live and free on the Audacy app. As we welcome David in from Indianapolis. David, of course, the big storyline here is that the Commanders have now won a third in a row. They come from behind again, a 16-7 deficit with about 11 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter. You were there. You saw it for yourself with your very own eyes. What did you see?
A lot of defensive resilience, and that's kind of the way that I'm going to have to put it. First and foremost, for those of you who usually join our lives, I'm going to apologize real quick for my audio. Not in a radio booth. I'm actually still in the press box, just a secluded area of the press box, which is also why the lighting isn't all that great. So road trips are always fun and adventurous, Chris. You know that, and our viewers and some of our listeners are going to learn that as well. But appreciate you guys being with us anyway. And that's really the best way that I can put this is defensive resilience, because early on in the game, it was just basically on the defense to make sure that the Indianapolis Colts weren't going to be able to do everything that they were trying to do and take advantage of everything they were trying to build to keep the team in it and even preserve the early lead that they were able to take into halftime and coming out of the second half. And then as the second half went going, you saw the Indianapolis Colts be able to exploit a couple of things and take advantage of some things they were saying that Ron Rivera was already, saying that he's very much not happy about some of the things that were happening on the field, but they'll address those. But even with some of those bad things happening and some of the chunk plays and explosive plays that we saw in the second half, still able to keep the team in it enough to give Taylor Heinicke and the offense a chance to eventually pull it out in the end.
Well, and that they did. And that's really where we, start that final drive, David. They take over with 2.5 or so left to go and have to go 89 yards. Now, it was key that they only needed 6 points in order to tie, meaning a touchdown to tie, and the extra point would give them the lead. And that's the way it would work out in a 17-16 win. But to me, when you look at this team and the plays that were made on that final drive, and they had to convert on a fourth down. Curtis Samuel, Taylor Heinicke, I'm going to break that down a little bit more. A big one to Cam Sims over the middle. A huge pass to Terry McLaurin up for grabs. He goes up and snatches it as you titled the show Homecoming King, right? I mean, so many things had to go right on that final drive for the Commanders to be in a position for Taylor Heinicke to plunge it in from 1 yard out and for Joey Sly to get an extra point off that was almost blocked, by the way, and would have been a disaster to give them the 17-16 lead and then to hang on for dear life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just a lot of things, like you said, that had to kind of go right. And it was just kind of interesting because, we were talking about it in the press box, as we kind of just talk amongst ourselves and coming into that last drive of the entire game, Taylor Heinicke just really hadn't had a whole lot of passing success and hadn't done a whole lot of things that you would want to see him do, especially building off of what happened against Green Bay Packers. We all kind of came out of that game, the second half specifically saying that, man, if that second half is indicative of what we'll see from a Taylor Heinicke-led offense moving forward, then this team is in a really good position. And what actually ended up happening is much, much different, that we're going to talk about throughout the episode. But yeah, those last drives, I mean, specifically that final one, the most passing production he had in the entire game. So if you're going to do it on the last drive. I asked Ron Rivera after the game if he learned anything or confirmed anything that he already knew about his quarterback. And he jokingly started the answer by saying, well, I learned that he was saving it for the end. And, we all had a nice laugh over that. But then he kind of just talked about the resiliency that, again, you just can't quantify, but you do witness it from time to time on the field.
Yeah, 89 yards. They took over at 2:39 left on the clock, 3 timeouts plus the 2-minute warning, and down to 22 seconds. And again, 89 yards is not, your standard 75-yard drive, okay, after a kickoff and, you take the ball at the 25. I mean, they had to drive not the entire length of the field, but pretty much the entire length of the field. For me, David, obviously the final drive is what we'll all remember and what made this win. And again, all the great plays and the legend of Taylor Heinicke and the Heinicke Hive and all that. But you know what? We can't lose sight of the second to last drive because they were dead on arrival at that point. Heinicke had the horrible turnover, pressure off the right side of the offensive line. And Heinicke threw one up for grabs. And it looked like the game was, quite honestly over at that point, especially after Indianapolis punches it in right after that. So that final drive was huge, but a 12-play, 82-yard field goal drive gets the Commanders to within 6. Again, very key. Gets the Commanders to within 6. And I think they got that drive going with a couple of screens, a swing pass to the right, quick and easy throws, but also not only quick and easy calls and reads, but also good, accurate throws for Taylor Heinicke, something he doesn't always do on the short passes. And to me, that woke up the Commanders offense, got them the 3 points, and got them right back in the game and gave them a chance.
Yeah, they really kind of turned to something that they were doing earlier in the game. Antonio Gibson was kind of the main back early to start the ball game, and they did some running with him, but they also hit on some of those screenplays that you were talking about. Not a lot of them went for what would be technically considered explosive plays, but there was an early screen that was 18 yards that technically, 20 yards is explosive. So if it's not 20, it's not explosive. So 18 is not explosive, but 18 is about as close as you get to explosive without being that. And it was very impactful. And then they turned back to it towards the end of the game, and it helped them win.
No doubt about it. We're going to get to our plays of the day on both sides in just a moment, guys. Plus, inside and defense, the offensive and defensive performances and how they help the Commanders. But now, a word from our sponsor. All right, guys, you know that when you are trying to do life, right? It's tough to train your brain to kind of stay in problem-solving mode and to not get too down, not to get too despondent when you're faced with challenge after challenge in life. But when you learn how to find out your own solutions, there's no better feeling, right? A sense of accomplishment. But sometimes you need help. And the Commanders needed help. Sometimes you might need help. A therapist can help you become a better problem solver, making it easy to accomplish your goals, no matter how big or small. That's why I'm in the beginning stages of getting some help myself. If you're thinking of giving therapy a try, BetterHelp is a great option. It's convenient, accessible, affordable, and entirely online. Get matched up with a therapist after filling out a brief survey and switch therapists at any time. When you want to be a better problem solver, therapy can help you get there. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/lockedon. All right, back with you on the Locked On Commanders podcast. Good to have you guys aboard. The Commanders took away a win in more ways than one from the Colts. Details on that coming up. But first, we thank you for hanging out here with us on the Locked On Commanders podcast and making us your first listen and first watch of the day. For your second listen and watch, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes. with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today. It's available on the app, on this app, I should say, or YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, David, back to our plays of the day. I'm going to kick it over to you because, you opened the show with defense. But I want you to expand a little bit on one of the big plays that maybe people forgot about, considering the epic offensive comeback. It was really kind of the defense that set the tone, as you mentioned in our open.
Yeah, I mean, really, unfortunately, the title, like we got to kind of put as much information as the show title as we can. So we mentioned the defense in there, and the defense actually the third thing that we mentioned in there. But really, I mean, the defense should be kind of the first thing. And when we get to our game balls, we'll talk about that too. The group as a whole, definitely earned this win. I think anytime you hold an opposing team under 20 points, and you can say that your defense is earning a win, it's whether or not your offense is going to be able to counterpunch and score enough points to be able to secure the thing for you. And that's really part of the discussion that we'll get to. But one of the biggest plays, I know John Allen, had a hand in forcing a fumble in the game as well. But I think that when you look at just the totality of the team, Derek Forrest forcing a fumble on Jonathan Taylor. I mean, just not that long ago was an MVP candidate. They're shutting down Lucas Oil Stadium on us. They're going to lock us in here. And in here, Derek Forrest is a second-year player, not highly touted coming out of Cincinnati and all this stuff. And now, he's making one of the biggest plays of the game, and the Washington Commanders are able to get the ball back. Now, the thing you don't like seeing is the fact that some explosive plays lead to the Commanders, being backed up in their own red zone for both fumbles. So you want to kind of erase those things. I think that's what Ron Rivera is talking about when he says there's some issues that they had to clean up. But at the end of the day, when your defense has the ability to not say, woe was us, we gave up this big play, boo-hoo, we're not doing well. No, they rise up, they stand up, they do their job, they do what needs to be done to get the ball back and give their offense a chance. Derek Forrest forcing that fumble, that was a big part of it as well. Yeah,
so much for that snazzy backdrop you had of the field behind you and the guy running all around. Sorry about that. We're, again, doing this live. We can only control so much. For my play of the day, I'm going to go with the fourth down conversion on that final drive to Curtis Samuel. We kind of alluded to it in our open, but when you go back and watch that play, watch it again, because Taylor Heinicke pump fakes to the left. He's not reading Curtis Samuel, who's lined up to the right. He pump fakes to the left, holds it because he doesn't like what he sees. Then he takes like a jab step forward, like he's going to maybe run for it, because, again, remember, it's fourth and like 1.5-ish right after J.D. McKissic slips and wipes out of the timeout, right? So they need 2 plays to get basically 1.5 yards. They don't get it on the first play, third down. So he takes a jab step kind of forward and realizes, oh no, I can't go there because I'm going to get swallowed up and the game's going to be over. And then he bumps back out of it and rolls to his right, keeps his eyes up, keeps his hips in the right position, and then fires a strike to, again, Curtis Samuel. I think it was for 11 yards, 10 yards, whatever it was. To me, of course, that's, arguably the most important individual play of the day. But the way it happened and the way it unfolded, certainly really important for Taylor Heinicke and the Commanders, who, again, come up with a big performance. Overall, David, from the offensive side, I mean, there was a lot to like, but also there was some not to like. And I know you're kind of worried about, I guess, maybe some trust in Taylor Heinicke.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, if the trust in Taylor is really there. And what's hard about that sentence is I don't know where that lack of trust is coming from, if it is indeed there, because throughout the course of the early part of the game, and I know some fans were noticing, I saw the traffic on Twitter, and people were noticing the play call was extremely conservative. You know what I mean? Like, they weren't really attacking the Indianapolis Colts. And it's kind of ironic because Candy Waller and I were talking, Candy Waller of Seawall Sports or Seawall Entertainment, sorry. And she mentioned, she's like, man, like, this team isn't taking shots. And we really thought they would at least take, a couple shots here and there, like maybe 2 a quarter, something like that. And they really aren't taking shots. And like almost on cue, the Indianapolis Colts took a shot. That's the big pass they connected on over Benjamin St. Juste to Alec Pierce. And we're like, so the Colts are taking shots, but now the Washington Commanders aren't taking shots. And again, in that answer where I asked Ron Rivera if he learned anything or confirmed anything about his quarterback, and when he says, he's kind of joking, right? But a lot of times a little bit of truth is said in jest. We said he was saving it for the end. that almost kind of made me wonder, because I came into it thinking Scott Turner doesn't trust Taylor Heinicke. Scott Turner's calling a very conservative offense. He's really not letting his quarterback rip it. He's just kind of going dink and dunk, do small stuff. We know we have a defense that can keep the score low. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves. And then all of a sudden you're trailing, and now you don't have a choice. And to me, that's the worst position to put a quarterback like Taylor Heinicke in. But you see him deliver, and then Ron says, well, it turns out he was saving it for the end. So now I'm wondering, well, okay, was this a Scott Turner thing, or is this Taylor Heinicke having the calls and just deciding to maybe, in his mind, want to play smart football? And these are all things that maybe we can ask him, later in the week on Wednesday when we see Taylor again. But that kind of got me thinking. So to me, it looks early on like either the play calling is limiting Taylor, or Taylor is just not taking the shots that are being drawn up for him. And I just wonder if it's a lack of confidence or faith in himself, or if it's Scott Turner with a lack of faith in Taylor. But listen, the Colts, the Bears, even the Packers this season, you can kind of wait for them to make their own mistakes and take your shot when the time comes. 12-round fight, wait till the 8th or 9th to really make your move. The Minnesota Vikings, I don't know that you can do that. I don't know that you can come out with this passive offense. So whatever it is that caused that conservative approach early needs to get figured out before next week.
Yeah, listen. I think is a lot of conservatism, if you will, and trying to limit the mistakes and trying to ask too much from Taylor Heinicke, especially no Jahan Dotson. Obviously, the offensive line still not great. Quite honestly, they got ambushed at times in this game, including on the bad interception, including on the 4th and 1 stop. But I would say this: there is a clear lack of faith, certainly at the end of the first halves of these games, and that goes back to Carson Wentz. They don't trust their quarterbacks to make plays when there's under 2 minutes or around 2 minutes or less than 2 minutes. And even though you have timeout, they don't trust them to go into halftime and have bad juju, bad momentum. So that is a sign. We'll get more into that, obviously, as the week goes along. For me, there was way too much inefficiency from the Commanders' offense outside of the 3 scoring drives. It's all that they needed. Like you said, it ain't going to be enough against the Minnesota Vikings and Kirk Cousins, who makes his first trip back to FedEx Field since leaving as a free agent next Sunday with the Minnesota Vikings, and then the Eagles on Monday Night Football, who still might be undefeated at that point. They'll play Thursday night. Listen, they failed on the 4th down and 1 opportunity at midfield. Many had an issue with the pistol alignment. It was really about the offensive lineman and John Bates, who's one of the better blocking tight ends in the game. He didn't get a key block, and a free linebacker just shoot straight through at Brian Robinson. They had 24 plays on 6 possessions, David, in between the scores, the first score and then the field goal drive, the second to last drive. That's just an average of 4 plays per possession. So that's a problem, especially when you consider the turnover on downs and interception, not converting on 3rd down, not getting enough momentum, and not helping out their defense much at all. Before we go too much further, David, let's go into that defense. For me, the key, it's going to get kind of lost in some of the turnovers and takeaways, but the 2nd down stop by Cam Curl on Michael Pittman on a fly sweep, in which, at least on the TV version, and I think at the stadium itself, they sent off the celebration and everybody thought the Colts had scored a touchdown. And correctly, the officials got it right without even reviewing it. They got it right. They said, no, it was not a touchdown. He was down, and he was. And it's because Cam Curl blew him up at the goal line. And then the 3rd down and goal stop, the next play from Jamin Davis, right? Say whatever you want about Jamin Davis and pass coverage and this, that, and the other thing, missed tackles. He didn't miss this one. He blew up Jonathan Taylor. That forced a field goal and made it 9-7 Colts. They score a touchdown there. I don't think, and the final score would tell us the Commanders don't win.
Right. And that's kind of the point. Like, look, the defense was not perfect. Don't get what I'm saying, what anybody's saying twisted. Like, the defense was not perfect. And again, Ron Rivera acknowledged that. JP Finley asked a very pointed question, just kind of said, hey, you seem very, very frustrated despite the win. And Ron said, yeah, I am, because there's a lot that they have to clean up. So it's good that they know that they need to clean those up. Good that they're celebrating the win. But, you always want to learn from a win rather than try to learn from a loss, because that's much worse. But yeah, all those things, are valid. We got some people out here, Eric Allen in the live chat, saying that the fans believe in Taylor and Stefan, I'm not sure how that's pronounced for you. Saying same thing. He trusts Taylor. The fans trust Taylor, and we know the Heinicke hive is buzzing. They're ready to go. And Chris, if they can pull off another win against Minnesota, and if you go into Philly on Monday Night Football riding a 4-game win streak, this thing is going to get really fun really fast. So shout out to all of you guys joining us here on the live chat. Let us know where you're watching from. Let us know what you think Taylor, defense, otherwise. We got game balls coming up, so definitely make sure you let us know who your game ball would go to.
Absolutely. We do appreciate you guys, no doubt about it. So, again, a big defensive performance, a big offensive performance late for the Commanders in the 17-16 win. Remember, they won a couple of games during their 4-game winning streak last year, David, against Seattle on Monday Night Football at FedEx, and then against the Las Vegas Raiders just 5.5 days later in Vegas. 17-15, the final scores in those games. This 17-16. So something about that 17-point number and winning streaks and somehow coming away with some tight victories. So the Commanders pop back to 500, guys. But if you're looking to pop the question, oh, yes, this holiday season, man, if you have a milestone to celebrate or want to let your love sparkle, our friends at Blue Nile can help you make your celebrations even more memorable. As the original online jeweler, Blue Nile offers the largest selection of independently graded diamonds and pieces priced significantly below traditional retailers. Blue Nile has millions of couples creating their perfect engagement ring. Their easy online tools let you choose diamond shape, size, clarity, as well as setting style. Blue Nile's bench jewelers will then help you handcraft her perfect one-of-a-kind engagement ring. If you're looking for a piece of fine jewelry, a watch, they have it all for you, and they have jewelry experts on hand 24/7 available via phone or chat. It's that simple, guys. A gift for every budget. Shop stress-free, 100% satisfaction guarantee. All orders insured and shipping for free in discreet package. Make your moments sparkle with Blue Nile. Go to BlueNile.com and use the code LOCKEDON to save $50 and use on your purchase of $500 or more. That's BLUENILE, BlueNile.com. Code locked on to save $50 on your purchase of $500 or more at BlueNile.com. Code locked on. All right, wrapping up the Locked On Commanders podcast, David Harrison at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. Again, this will serve as not only our live Sunday postgame, as we traditionally do, but also our full Monday episode. We appreciate you being with us. But Victory Monday, David, means we're handing out some game balls, and we're kind of doing something that we started doing last week at FedEx Field, kind of doing it like 3 stars of the game, 3 stars of the night, like they do in the NHL. And we'll start here with our number 3 star. And listen, he wasn't pretty for a lot of the game, but again, those 2 final drives and something about some of the escapability and some of the off-platform, off-schedule plays that I just don't know if this team was ever going to get from Carson Wentz. And you got to give a tip of the cap. It wasn't pretty. It was ugly at a lot of times, but Taylor Heinicke somehow pulled a win out of the Magic Hat.
Yeah, absolutely. I try to stay away a little bit from like the Carson version. Like, would Carson have done what Terry or what Taylor would have done? And all those. I just think that they have different skill sets enough that we really. I don't want to say can't, because obviously we can, but I just want to stay away from those comparisons personally myself. By all means, you and anybody else can dive freely into those. Real quick, we have some viewers from Texas chiming in here. Sergio talking about scary Terry. We appreciate all of you guys, of course. And we got Yam in Japan. And look, I know what it's like to watch NFL football overseas. That is some commitment. Everybody's committed, but that is some commitment. So I really appreciate all of our overseas guys too. But look, Taylor Heinicke, this kind of goes back to the whole trust thing, right? Before those final 2 drives of the game, he's got 128, 129 yards. Mm-hmm. The final 2 drives of the game combined, he pulls off 156, if I remember, if my math is correct on that one. And that's exactly why I asked the question, Ron, that I did about him. And I think while it shows that resiliency that you can't really measure, because it's more of an effort thing than anything else, I think it also shows his ability to really turn it on. And we've seen Taylor do this. I think seeing this as a comeback effort, especially late in the game, final drive type of situation, that is a little bit new or a little bit more rare, I think, in this circumstance. So I really like seeing that. And again, for a second week straight, we're going to come out and say, is what we saw late in the game going to be what we see early in the game next week? And I think that's going to be the key to continuing to stack wins.
Yeah. And a second consecutive passing touchdown week or passing touchdown connection to Antonio Gibson, which, again, for those that don't remember what he was at Memphis, he was a wide receiver, not a running back. So certainly good to see. That was earlier in the first half, but not much scoring until those two final drives. Outside of that, again, one touchdown drive that ended in AG's touchdown. By the way, Antonio Gibson clearly seems to have once again catapulted ahead of Brian Robinson as the main running back du jour, if you will, for the Washington Commanders. He has not had any ball security issues since the preseason. Star number 2 or game ball number 2, David, I think we should go with Jonathan Allen here. You mentioned the defense as a whole. We mentioned Derek Forrest popping one out of Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Allen, who is the heart and soul of this defense, he had a 4-yard run loss right around the red zone, if you will. Indianapolis was marching in the first half. And then his pressure as the quarterback stepped up for Indianapolis, his pressure forced a turnover at the Washington 17-yard line, and it was ultimately recovered by the Commanders at their own 22-yard line. He didn't actually force the fumble, but his pressure did by Ellinger. And I think Deron Payne, if memory serves me correct, picked that one up. And the Washington Commanders saved at least 3 points, probably. Who knows, maybe even more in that particular spot. 2 back-to-back huge plays by Jonathan Allen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and captain of the defense for a reason. And, every time he talks in the locker room, everybody swarms around him because everybody wants to hear what John has to say. I mean, and that's, again, you pick up plays and, we picked up the Derek Forrest play and all that stuff. And it's not because we don't appreciate what John is doing. It's just, and you almost hate to say this too, but like, that's what John brings to the field. You know what I mean? But at the same time, so when we praise Derek Forrest for that effort, because again, takeaways are effort plays, especially fumbles. Like those are effort plays. Those are not things that just happen out of, luck and all that. So unless a guy just drops the ball on his own, then it's a little bit lucky. But, when you're knocking a guy out, like Derek Forrest comes in there to hit that ball carrier with intent. Like there is a process behind that, I should say. And John Allen kind of leads that charge, and he does it. It's weird because he kind of does it very quietly. Like he's just a very quiet, almost like the scary drill sergeant that you can see in basic training that doesn't yell at you and doesn't spit in your face. And because he doesn't do all that stuff, or she doesn't do all that stuff, she or he is the most terrifying of them all. That's John Allen.
Yeah, and our number 1 game ball and number 1 star of the game and the win for the Commanders for a second week in a row.
The homecoming king.
The homecoming king. But think about this. One of his original nicknames, Scary Terry, and it's Halloween, baby. Home at the Lucas Oil Stadium where he used to watch Colts games. Terry McLaurin earlier in the game, David, had a 42-yard catch and run on a crossing route, and that kind of fueled a little bit of the offense for a little bit. That may have come on the Gibson touchdown drive. I can't remember. I'd have to go back and check my notes. But obviously the big play at the end, setting up the Commanders at the 1-yard line, just huge. And somehow they got away with him ripping off his helmet and yelling at everybody without a personal foul or an unsportsmanlike conduct. I have no idea how it happened, but I'm not asking for anything to happen.
No, hey, let's not let them turn these lights back on. Whoa, we missed it, guys. We got to come back. Look, Terry McLaurin, not going to get into the full language, so I'm going to paraphrase this. Basically told the Colts defense that Indianapolis was his town. That's basically what he said. If you go watch the video, read his lips. Scary Terry was home, and he was reclaiming his turf. The only thing is, I mean, you want to see a touchdown. You know what I mean? Look, I even said, I was like, let's do a 1-yard wildcat with Terry McLaurin. You know what I mean? Let's get him that touchdown. But you want to win the game. You don't want to pull craziness out of your hat at the last minute. You want to win the game. And that's exactly what they did. Look, I've never been happier for a botched play than I was after that 42-yarder because of the fact the pass was thrown behind him instead of in front of him, and behind Taylor instead of in front of him. That was actually went down as a run, which means that 42-yard pass was his first NFL catch back in his hometown. And I mean, other than a touchdown, you absolutely love to see it for Terry. He talked about just what it means. You know what I mean? Not just being home, but then Marvin Harrison. He dressed up as Marvin Harrison 2 years back to back as a kid in Indianapolis, and then to see Marvin before the game, because they did enshrine him into the Ring of Honor. Not only see him, but Marvin Harrison came up to Terry, he said, and asked Terry for a picture with him, and he said it just blew his mind, just a full circle moment. I even asked him about like why, if that's why he is so adamant about talking to fans and especially kids and signing autographs and taking pictures that he's so famous for doing. And he said absolutely it is, to reach out to the next generation of future Terry McLaurins out there. Maybe someday he can kind of go ask that kid that watched him play growing up for their photo. I already told Chris, look, we try to be as unbiased as we can. I fully will admit that I told Washington PR that if Terry McLaurin is actually a bad person behind closed doors, do not ever tell me, because I don't want that image to ever go away.
Also, congratulations, people that might not remember this, to assistant defensive line coach Ryan Kerrigan, part of the coaching staff now. He's from the Indianapolis area and grew up at Lucas Oil Stadium and the RCA Dome and all that stuff, going to Colts games. So congratulations again to him and to the Commanders for a 17-16 win, a third straight. They host Kirk Cousins, Kevin O'Connell, and the Minnesota Vikings at FedEx Field.
And one more quick game ball. First off, Yan in Japan, Lucas Oil is a very nice stadium. My first time in this stadium. It is very nice. Very happy
Except when they turn out the lights.
Except for when they're rude, apparently. But it is very nice. They're just tired. They want to go home. It's a later game. They just want to get out of here. But also to Chris Russell. So a little bit of a symbolic game ball. I'm going to hand that out to Chris Russell. You guys might have heard of him. Predicted a 19-17 score here, or 19-16 score rather. Commanders win. So not only 3-0 when he predicts the Commanders to win, but also 2 points off the actual score. So Chris, hat tip to you. Let's hope that you have enough ammo to predict a win against the Minnesota Vikings, because that means it's going to happen.
Thanks, pal. I appreciate you. I might have to pick the I might have to pick the Commanders to win over the Vikings just to keep the good karma going, even if I don't know if they're going to win or not. Certainly, they're going to need a better offensive performance than they got overall today. But, guys, 17-16 win, back on the next edition to talk about it in full and even more. And Ron Rivera will speak between now and then, so we will have all of those details for you. We appreciate you guys all being with us live, and whenever you're listening or watching the Locked On Commanders podcast, we very much appreciate you. We can't do it without you. So thank you. For your next listen and watch, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day, available on the Audacy app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. If you want to hop in for the next editions, 301-615-3577. That's 301-615-3577 on the voicemail lines. And for my partner, David Harrison at Lucas Oil Stadium, who's covered the Washington Commanders for SI.com's Fan Nation and Commander Country, I'm Chris Russell, one half of the Russell and Medhurst Show on the Team 980. If you're out and about, please be safe, be kind to one another. Safe flight home for David. And thank you for joining us live and whenever you're listening right here on the Locked On Commanders podcast.